North Dakota State Extension economist Frayne Olson is our marketing analyst this week. We talked with Frayne Tuesday afternoon about the current condition of U.S. winter wheat, upcoming reports on grain stocks and planting acres, and the situation between Ukraine and Russia. Residents in Crimea voted days ago to break away from Ukraine and allow Russia to annex their peninsula. Since the region is a grower and exporter of wheat and corn, we started our discussion with Frayne by asking what impact this could have in those two markets.
Short term, it has some impacts, but longer term, it can also have some impacts on both the wheat market as well as the corn market, because Ukraine is obviously a major exporter for wheat. We've talked about that before, as well as Russia. But the last several years, Ukraine has also been a major exporter of corn and a competitor for us in the world corn market. So both the corn market as well as the wheat market's taking a look at this and trying to pay attention to it. Short term, there hasn't seemed to be any major interruptions. Crimea, which has a naval base on it, also has some export facilities, but they're not the core exporting region or the export facilities for the Ukraine. That's located in another part of their coastal region. So short term, the shipments, the grain has already been sold, already been booked. Those shipments have been pretty much on time, so the people that have ordered it already have been getting their shipments, which was kind of the first concern. But it looks a little bit longer term now that the major buyers are a bit concerned about buying additional wheat or corn from that region. So the current discussion is that Ukraine isn't selling a lot of new corn or new wheat sales at this point. Obviously, with the tension starting to escalate now, there's some concerns what's going to happen to some of the Russian wheat exports as well. So, it's a developing story. It's something we're going to have to pay attention to. One of the other issues that's coming up in the Ukraine is, given the uncertainty and the problems that may occur economically within the country, are the farmers in that region going to be able to get financing to put the crop in? And again, we don't know the answer to all of that. We're trying to follow it and pay close attention.
Let's come back home, and what do you believe is the current situation for the U.S. winter wheat crop?
Yeah, that's the other major thing that the wheat market's concerned about or looking at right now is the winter wheat conditions. The short term, the real issue we're arguing about or trying to figure out is how many of the acres that were planted last year will actually break dormancy and be able to move into vegetative state so we can start getting a yield read on it. Last year we had a very high abandonment rate. There was a lot of the winter wheat that got seeded that either did not come out of the ground or got ripped up later on for crop insurance. And that was a little bit of a surprise to the wheat market, the level of abandonment we got last year. It's also a concern this year. It is something we're trying to pay attention to. Both domestically as well as internationally, our carryover stocks of wheat are getting a little bit on the tight side. It's not to a danger zone yet, but we're on the low end of comfortable. And so it is something that the wheat market's paying quite a bit of attention to because we do need a good wheat crop again this year.
At the very end of the month, on the 31st, we'll get two reports from the USDA. One will be on prospective planting acres for the spring, and the other will be on grain stocks. Do you have expectations going into those two big reports?
Yeah, everybody, I want them to circle the March 31st on their calendar because that's going to be a very important day. The market really is focused primarily on the planting intentions report, the first survey-based read on what farmers intend to plant next year. Everybody knows they'll probably adjust those planting intentions as we move through the spring's work, but it's our first real read on what we think farmers are going to do. And of course, the division or the balance of acres between corn, soybeans, and wheat are going to be very, very important. I think right now the expectation is that corn acres are going to be down, soybean acres will be up, wheat acres will be probably stable, very similar to what we saw last year. Again, the big argument is how much will corn be down and how much will soybeans be up. The other thing the other report we're going to get will be the quarterly stocks report, which will be important particularly for corn because that's one of the reports we use to get a gauge or a feel on how quickly we're using up the corn crop in the feed sector, livestock sector. It's very difficult to track those numbers, and the quarterly stocks report is what we use as a benchmark.
I know one of the things you're also looking at, Frayne, is that Hogs and Pigs report, the quarterly one coming out the Friday before those two big reports to see how much corn could actually be used by what's left of a hog supply.
And that is an issue, obviously not just for the hog sector or the pork sector, but also for feed from the corn side. As the PED virus becomes a bigger issue, as the herd size starts to contract, The question is, how much corn are we actually going to be using within the pork sector? And that's one of the things we use to get a read on what those numbers should be.